The wine glass held death. Adrian Vale didn't know it yet. The billionaire sat alone in candlelight, seconds from taking a sip that would end everything: his empire, his son's future, his life. But a trembling waitress saw what he couldn't: the poison, the betrayal, the man he trusted most turning into his executioner. One switched glass, one whispered warning, one woman with nothing to lose became the only thing standing between a father and a grave. This is the story of how the richest man in the city learned that loyalty has a price, and sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected hands. If you're watching from New York, Tokyo, London, or anywhere else on this planet, drop your city in the comments below. Hit that like button and let's see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The reservation book at Luminaire called it the Vale Table. Corner position, third floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city that never quite decided whether it wanted to sleep or keep burning money. Adrian Vale sat there most Thursday nights when the merger talks ran late, when the lawyers needed one more signature, when Victor Hale insisted they celebrate progress with wine that cost more than most people's rent. Tonight was supposed to be simple: sign the papers, shake hands, go home to Max. Adrian checked his watch, 8:47 p.m. Victor was late, which wasn't unusual. The man treated punctuality like a suggestion, not a requirement. Adrian didn't mind. It gave him time to think, to review the merger documents one last time before committing his company to a partnership that would either double his wealth or complicate it beyond recognition. The restaurant hummed with the kind of quiet that only existed in places where the cheapest entree cost $100. Soft jazz, softer conversations, the clink of crystal against china. Adrian had been coming here for 6 years, ever since Max was born, and he'd needed somewhere close to the office, somewhere he could grab dinner between meetings and still make it home before his son's bedtime. He knew the staff by name, recognized the chef's signature on every plate, trusted the wine list more than he trusted most people. That trust, he would later realize, almost killed him. "Mr. Vale?" Adrian glanced up. The waitress, Elena, her name tag read, stood beside his table with a wine glass balanced on a silver tray. She was maybe 30, maybe older. Hard to tell. She had that worn look some people carried, like life had handed them too many bills and not enough breaks. Dark hair pulled back, eyes that didn't quite meet his. "I didn't order yet," Adrian said. "Compliments of Mr. Hale, sir. He called ahead, said you'd want your usual while you waited." Adrian nodded. That sounded like Victor, always a step ahead, always managing details before Adrian thought to ask. It was why their partnership worked. Victor handled the charm, the client dinners, the handshake deals that made investors feel special. Adrian handled the numbers, the strategy, the foundation that kept everything from collapsing into expensive chaos. Elena set the glass down. Her hand shook slightly. Adrian noticed because he noticed things like that. Small details, inconsistencies, cracks in the pattern. She stepped back quickly, almost too quickly, and turned toward the kitchen. "Elena." She stopped, turned halfway. "Yes, sir? You all right?" "Fine, Mr. Vale, just busy night." She left before he could respond. Adrian watched her go, frowning. Something off in her movement, something tight in her shoulders. But then his phone buzzed, message from Victor. "Stuck in traffic, 15 minutes. Start without me." Adrian set the phone down, picked up the wine glass, held it to the light. Chateau Margaux, 2015. Victor's favorite, though Adrian preferred bourbon. Still, it was a gesture, a tradition. They toasted with this same vintage the night they first discussed merging their companies, back when it was just an idea scribbled on a napkin at this exact table. He brought the glass to his lips. "Mr. Vale." Elena was back, breathing hard like she'd run from the kitchen. She reached for his glass before he could drink. "I'm sorry, wrong vintage. Chef's mistake. Let me—" She grabbed the glass. Wine sloshed slightly. Adrian pulled back, confused. "It's fine, Elena. Really." "No, sir. Please. It's the 2014, not the 2015. Mr. Hale specifically requested, I can't tell the difference." "But he can." Her voice cracked slightly. "He'll notice. Please, just let me bring the right one." She didn't wait for permission. She took the glass and walked away quickly, steadier this time, like she'd made a decision and needed to commit before she changed her mind. Adrian watched her disappear through the kitchen doors. Weird. Definitely weird. But restaurant staff got nervous around clients who tipped well and complained loud. Maybe she'd had a bad experience with Victor before. Maybe the chef really had screwed up and she'd take heat for it. He returned to the merger documents, 300 pages of legal language that basically said, Adrian Vale and Victor Hale will combine their companies under shared ownership, splitting profits 60-40 in Vale's favor due to larger initial capital investment. Standard stuff. His lawyers had reviewed it twice. Victor's team had countersigned everything, just needed his signature to make it official. Elena returned with another glass, set it down carefully. This time her hands were steady. The 2015, Mr. Vale. Thank you. She nodded, started to leave, stopped, turned back, leaned in slightly, voice dropping to something just above a whisper. Be careful. Then she was gone again, weaving through tables toward the bar where another customer flagged her down. Adrian stared at the glass. Be careful. What the hell did that mean? Careful of what? The wine? Victor? The merger? He didn't drink it, not yet. Instead, he waited, watching the kitchen doors, watching Elena as she moved through her shift. She didn't look his direction again, didn't acknowledge him, just worked, pouring water, clearing plates, smiling at customers with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Victor arrived 20 minutes later, loud and apologetic and smelling like expensive cologne. He dropped into the seat across from Adrian with a grin that suggested traffic had been a minor inconvenience, not a real problem. Adrian, Christ, I'm sorry. Accident on 5th, total nightmare. It's fine. You started the wine? Adrian glanced at the untouched glass. Waiting for you. Victor flagged down another waitress, not Elena, and ordered a second glass of the Margot plus appetizers neither of them needed. He was 41, 3 years older than Adrian, with the kind of charisma that made investors trust him instantly. Salt and pepper hair, sharp suit, a Rolex that Adrian had given him last Christmas, custom engraved with their company logos intertwined. So, Victor said, pulling out his own copy of the merger agreement, we doing this or what? I want to review Section 9 again. Adrian, come on, we've reviewed this thing to death. Indulge me. Victor sighed but flipped to Section 9. Insurance clauses, beneficiary updates, what happened to company assets if either partner died unexpectedly. Standard mortality planning, morbid but necessary. Adrian read it carefully, nothing unusual. If he died, his shares transferred to a trust for Max until the kid turned 25. If Victor died, his shares went to his sister in California. Clean, simple. Satisfied? Victor asked. Yeah. Then sign the damn thing so we can celebrate. Adrian picked up his pen, hesitated, looked at the wine glass again. Be careful. What's wrong? Victor asked. Nothing, just thinking about Max, making sure this is the right move. It's the right move. Your kid's going to inherit an empire, not just a company. That's what this is about, Adrian. Legacy. Legacy. Right, that's what Victor always said. Build something bigger than yourself. Leave something behind that mattered. Adrian signed. Victor grinned, grabbed his wine glass, raised it high. To the future. Adrian lifted his own glass, paused, sniffed it, looked at Victor. What? Victor said. Nothing. They drank. Victor in one smooth swallow, Adrian in a small sip that barely touched his tongue. The wine tasted fine. Normal. Maybe a little bitter, but wine was supposed to be bitter. Dinner arrived. They ate. They talked. Victor outlined expansion plans. New offices in Chicago, maybe London, definitely Singapore. Adrian half listened, nodding in the right places, but his attention kept drifting to Elena, who was clearing a table near the windows and very deliberately not looking his direction. Be careful. By the time dessert arrived, creme brulee that Victor insisted they share, Adrian felt fine. No dizziness, no nausea, no signs of poison or sabotage or whatever paranoid scenario his brain had been building. Maybe Elena was just nervous. Maybe he'd misread everything. Victor paid the bill with his corporate card, left a generous tip, and walked Adrian to the parking garage. They shook hands under fluorescent lights that buzzed slightly, and Victor clapped him on the shoulder like they were brothers, not business partners. "Get home safe," Victor said. "Hug that kid for me." "Will do." Adrian drove home in silence, replaying the evening in his head. The switched glass, the warning, the merger. By the time he pulled into his driveway, a modest place by Billionaire standards, just 4 bedrooms and a yard where Max could play, he'd almost convinced himself it was nothing. Inside, the nanny was watching TV in the living room. She stood when Adrian entered. "He's asleep," she said. "Went down around 8:30. Any trouble?" "None. He asked about you twice, but I told him you'd see him in the morning." Adrian paid her, locked the door behind her, and climbed the stairs to Max's room. The kid was 6 years old, small for his age, curled under a dinosaur comforter with one arm wrapped around a stuffed elephant. Adrian stood in the doorway watching him breathe, feeling that familiar tightness in his chest that came from loving something so much it scared him. Max's mother had died in childbirth. Complications the doctor said they couldn't predict. One minute Adrian was holding her hand, the next he was holding his son and signing papers that said he was a single father with no idea what he was doing. 6 years later, he still didn't know. But he tried. He worked from home when he could, he made breakfast, he attended school events. He built a company not because he loved money, but because Max deserved security, stability, a future where he didn't have to worry about anything except being a kid. That's what the merger was supposed to protect. That's what Victor had promised. Adrian kissed Max's forehead and went to his own room. Exhaustion hit him like a wave. He stripped to his boxers, collapsed into bed, and was asleep before his head fully settled into the pillow. The next morning, Adrian woke to sunlight slicing through curtains he'd forgotten to close. His phone said 7:14 a.m. He had a meeting at 9, needed a shower, needed coffee, needed to function. Max was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal and watching cartoons on a tablet. Adrian ruffled his hair as he passed. "Morning, buddy." "Morning, Dad. Sleep okay?" "Uh-huh." Adrian made coffee, strong, black, drank half the cup before his brain started working properly. His phone buzzed, email from his assistant. Reminder, 9 a.m. staff meeting. Also, someone named Elena Brooks is in the lobby asking to see you. No appointment. Should I send her away? Adrian stopped mid-sip. "Elena." "The waitress." He typed back, "Give me 10 minutes, then send her up." He showered quickly, dressed in a suit that cost more than Elena probably made in a month, and kissed Max goodbye before heading to the office. The building was downtown, 23 floors of glass and steel, with his company's name etched across the top, Vale Industries. Elena was waiting in the lobby, looking even more out of place than she had at the restaurant. She wore jeans and a jacket that had seen better years, and she stood near the elevators like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be there. Adrian's assistant, Diane, efficient and unflappable, gave him a questioning look as he approached. "It's fine," Adrian said. "I'll handle it." He led Elena to his office, 20th floor, corner view, the kind of space that usually made people nervous. She sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk and folded her hands in her lap like she was waiting for bad news. Adrian sat down, studied her. "You came all the way here to tell me about a wine vintage?" "No." "Then what?" She took a breath, let it out slowly. "I saw someone put something in your drink." The room went very quiet. "What?" Adrian said. "Last night, before I brought you the wine, I was coming out of the kitchen and I saw there was a man at the bar. He had your glass. She stopped, started again. "He dropped something into it, something small, like a pill maybe, or powder, I don't know. But he did it fast, like he'd practiced. And then he gave the glass to another server to bring to your table." Adrian felt something cold settle in his chest. "What did he look like?" "Tall, maybe 6 feet, dark suit, expensive. He had..." She hesitated. "He had a watch, gold. I noticed it because it caught the light. There was an engraving on it, but I couldn't read it from where I was standing." Adrian's hand moved to his wrist without thinking. He wasn't wearing a watch today, but last night he'd worn the same model Victor had. Same brand, same engraving, to partnership. "What did you do?" Adrian asked quietly. "I panicked. I didn't know what to do. If I told someone, I thought maybe I'd lose my job. Or worse, if this guy was dangerous, if he... She shook her head. So I switched the glasses. Told you it was the wrong vintage. Took the bad one to the kitchen and poured it down the sink. You saved my life. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it wasn't poison. Maybe it was... I don't know. But I couldn't... Her voice cracked. I couldn't just let you drink it. Adrian stood, walked to the window, looked down at the city below, cars and people and buildings that all seemed very small from up here. This man at the bar, he said. Did you see where he went after? He left, out the side entrance. I tried to follow him, but I had tables. By the time I got outside, he was gone. Could you identify him if you saw him again? Maybe. I don't know. It was dark. But the watch, I'd remember the watch. Adrian turned back to her. Why are you telling me this now? Why not last night? Because I was scared. Because I didn't know if you'd believe me. Because... She looked down at her hands. Because I'm nobody, Mr. Vale. I'm a waitress. You're you. Why would you listen to me? I'm listening now. She met his eyes. Someone tried to kill you, and I think you know who. Adrian didn't answer. Couldn't, because she was right. He did know. Or at least, he suspected. The watch. The timing. The fact that Victor had called ahead to order the wine, had been late to dinner, had insisted they toast to the future. Victor. His partner. His friend. The man he'd trusted with half his company. I need to make some calls, Adrian said. Can you stay in the city for a few days? I have work. I'll pay you. Whatever you make in a week, I'll double it. Just stay available. I might need you to talk to someone, police maybe, or a lawyer. Elena nodded slowly. Okay. Adrian wrote down his personal number on a business card and handed it to her. If anything happens, anything weird, anyone following you, anything, you call me, immediately. You think I'm in danger? I think if someone's willing to poison me in public, they're willing to do worse in private. So, yeah, be careful. She took the card, stood, hesitated at the door. Mr. Vale? Yeah? Why would someone want you dead? Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's what I'm about to find out. After Elena left, Adrian canceled his morning meetings and locked his office door. He pulled up the merger agreement on his computer and read it again, this time looking for details he'd missed. Patterns, inconsistencies, anything that suggested Victor had been planning this longer than a single dinner. Section 9 caught his attention again. The insurance clause. If Adrian died, his shares went to Max's trust. But Max was 6. A trust needed a trustee until the kid turned 25. And according to the paperwork, that trustee was Victor Hale. Adrian's stomach dropped. If he died, Victor wouldn't just control his own shares. He'd control Adrian's too. 60% of the company held in trust for a child who wouldn't legally access it for 19 years. Victor would have complete operational control. Full authority, no oversight. And if something happened to Max before he turned 25, an accident, an illness, anything, the shares defaulted to the company's surviving partner. Victor. Adrian grabbed his phone, dialed his lawyer. Jim, it's Adrian. I need you to review something, the merger agreement, specifically Section 9. What am I looking for? Anything that gives Victor control if I die. Silence on the other end. Then, Adrian, that's standard mortality planning. You signed off on it. I know I signed off on it. I'm asking you to look again. Okay, I'll pull the file. Give me an hour. Adrian hung up. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the desk, forcing them still. Think. Don't panic. Think. If Victor had tried to kill him last night, and everything pointed to that, it meant the merger wasn't about partnership. It was about acquisition. Victor didn't want to share the company. He wanted to own it. And Adrian, alive, was the only thing standing in his way. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Vale, it's Elena. I remembered something. What? The man at the bar, before he left. He got a phone call. I heard him say a name, Victor. He said, Victor, it's done. And then he hung up and left. The world tilted slightly. Elena, Adrian said carefully. Where are you right now? Still in your building, lobby. Go to the coffee shop across the street. Wait there. I'm coming down. He grabbed his jacket and took the elevator down. Didn't trust himself to think clearly in his office, surrounded by furniture Victor had helped him pick out, art Victor had recommended, a view Victor had toasted the first day they'd moved in. The coffee shop was crowded with the morning rush. Elena sat in the back corner, hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. Adrian slid into the seat across from her. Tell me exactly what you heard, he said. She repeated it, word for word. Victor, it's done. Did he say anything else? No, just that. And then he left. Adrian leaned back, closed his eyes, tried to think past the rage building in his chest. Victor had tried to kill him, had hired someone, or convinced someone to poison him in public, at a restaurant where Adrian felt safe, during a dinner meant to celebrate their partnership. And if Elena hadn't noticed, if she hadn't switched the glasses, Adrian would be dead. Max would be an orphan, and Victor would be running the company, playing the devastated friend, raising a toast at Adrian's funeral while signing papers that made him a billionaire. What are you going to do? Elena asked. Adrian opened his eyes. I'm going to prove it. How? I don't know yet, but I will. Done. He spent the rest of the day digging. Financial records, emails, meeting notes, anything that might reveal Victor's plan. And slowly, piece by piece, a picture started forming. 3 months ago, Victor had taken out a massive life insurance policy on Adrian, $2 million. Beneficiary, the company, which Victor would control if Adrian died. 2 months ago, Victor had opened an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. No explanation, no business justification. 1 month ago, Victor had started meeting with a man named David Ortiz, a corporate consultant with a history of hostile takeovers and a reputation for making problems disappear. And 2 weeks ago, Victor had amended the merger agreement to include a clause Adrian hadn't noticed. If either partner became incapacitated, physically or legally, the other partner gained temporary control until the situation resolved. Incapacitated. That was the backup plan. If poison didn't work, Victor would find another way. Frame Adrian for something. Get him arrested. Declared mentally unfit. Anything that removed him from power long enough for Victor to consolidate control. Adrian's lawyer called back around 4 p.m. You were right, Jim said. The mortality clause gives Victor full operational control if you die. And there's another clause, buried in the appendices, that triggers if you're ever convicted of fraud or embezzlement. It voids your shares and transfers them to the company, which Victor would control. Exactly. Can we break the agreement? Not without cause. And Victor would sue, drag it out, cost you millions. What if I have proof he tried to kill me? Silence. Adrian, what the hell is going on? I'll call you back. He hung up, sat in the gathering darkness of his office, watching the city lights blink on one by one. Somewhere out there, Victor was planning his next move, waiting to see if the poison had worked or if he needed to escalate. Adrian's phone buzzed. Text from Victor. Dinner tomorrow? Same place? Need to discuss next steps for the merger. Same place, same restaurant, same table, probably. Adrian stared at the message, then typed back. Sure. 8 p.m. Victor's response came immediately. Perfect. See you then. Adrian set his phone down, looked at the merger agreement still open on his computer screen. Then he called his head of security, a former cop named Marcus who'd worked for him for 3 years and didn't ask stupid questions. Marcus, I need a favor, and I need it to stay quiet. What kind of favor? The kind that might save my life. That night, Adrian went home to Max and tried to pretend everything was normal. They ate pizza. They watched a movie. They argued about bedtime until Max finally fell asleep on the couch, and Adrian carried him upstairs, tucking him in like he'd done 1,000 times before. But this time, standing in the doorway watching his son sleep, Adrian felt the weight of it. If Victor succeeded, if the poison had worked, or if the next attempt did, Max would grow up without him, would inherit a company controlled by the man who'd killed his father, would never know the truth. That wasn't going to happen. Adrian went to his bedroom and pulled a locked box from the top shelf of his closet. Inside was a handgun he'd bought years ago and never fired. He checked the chamber, loaded. He put it back in the box and locked it again. He wasn't going to shoot Victor. That was insane. But knowing it was there, knowing he had options, made him feel slightly less helpless. His phone buzzed. Text from Elena. "Are you okay?" He typed back, "Yeah, you?" "Scared." "Me too." "What happens now?" Adrian stared at the question, then typed, "Tomorrow night, I find out how far he's willing to go." He didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. What he'd say, what Victor might do, how to stay alive long enough to prove what had happened. By the time the sun came up, he had a plan. It wasn't a good plan, but it was the only one he had. And tomorrow night at Luminaire, sitting across from the man who'd tried to kill him, Adrian Vale would either expose the truth or become its next victim. The Friday morning staff meeting felt like theater. Adrian sat at the head of the conference table, nodding at quarterly reports and expansion projections while his mind ran different calculations entirely. Victor sat 3 chairs down, smiling at jokes, offering suggestions, playing the role of trusted partner with the kind of ease that only came from years of practice. Adrian watched him, really watched him, tried to see past the charm to whatever lived underneath. The man who'd ordered his death sat there in a $1,500 suit, drinking coffee from a mug that said, "World's Best Boss," laughing at something the marketing director said about their Super Bowl ad campaign. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was exactly what he appeared to be. "Adrian?" He blinked. Everyone was looking at him. Victor, too, one eyebrow raised in polite concern. "Sorry," Adrian said. "What?" "The Singapore office," Diane repeated. "You wanted final approval on the lease terms before we commit." "Right. Yeah. Approve it. Move forward." The meeting continued. Adrian contributed when expected, but his attention kept drifting to the watch on Victor's wrist, the Rolex he'd given him last Christmas, custom engraved, to partnership. He wondered if Victor had been planning this even then, if he'd opened the gift box, read the inscription, and thought about all the ways he could use that partnership to bury Adrian 6 feet under. The meeting ended. People filed out. Victor lingered, gathering his papers slowly, and Adrian knew what was coming. "Hey," Victor said once they were alone. "You seem off. Everything okay?" "Fine, just tired." "Max keeping you up?" "Something like that." Victor leaned against the table, casual, concerned. "You sure? Because if the merger's stressing you out, it's not the merger." "Then what?" Adrian met his eyes, held them. "Nothing, really. I'm good." Victor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. But if you need to talk, you know I'm here. We're partners now, officially." "Yeah, partners." Victor clapped him on the shoulder, that same brotherly gesture from the restaurant, and left. Adrian stayed in the conference room, staring at the empty chair where Victor had been sitting, wondering how many lies could fit inside a single smile. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. "Got what you asked for. When do you want to meet?" Adrian typed back, "My office. Now." Marcus arrived 10 minutes later carrying a manila folder and wearing the expression of someone who'd found something he didn't like. He was 42, built like he still hit the gym daily, with a shaved head and a scar across his left eyebrow from his cop days. He closed the office door behind him and tossed the folder on Adrian's desk. "You were right to be paranoid," Marcus said. Adrian opened the folder. Inside were printouts, photographs, bank statements, email transcripts. He flipped through them, his stomach tightening with each page. "Victor's been moving money," Marcus said. "Started 3 months ago. Small transfers at first. 10,000 here, 20,000 there. All routed through shell companies in the Caymans. Last week he moved $500,000. To where?" "Can't trace it, but I found something else." Marcus pulled out another document. "Life insurance policy. $2 million. Beneficiary is the company, but there's a clause. If the company's under single ownership at the time of your death, the payout goes directly to that owner." "Victor." "Yeah." Adrian set the paper down. His hands weren't shaking anymore, just cold. "What about the consultant, David Ortiz?" "That's where it gets interesting." Marcus pulled up a photo on his phone and showed it to Adrian. A man in his 50s, gray hair, expensive suit. Ortiz specializes in hostile takeovers. He's been investigated twice for corporate espionage, once for blackmail. Nothing stuck, but the pattern's there. And Victor's been meeting with him. Every Wednesday for the past month. Always at the same bar downtown. Always cash payments. I checked the surveillance footage from nearby businesses. Ortiz leaves with envelopes. Adrian leaned back in his chair. The pieces were all there. The money, the insurance, the consultant, the poisoned wine, all of it pointing to a plan that had been in motion for months, maybe longer. "There's one more thing," Marcus said quietly. "I pulled Victor's phone records. The night of your dinner at Luminaire, he made 3 calls. One to the restaurant to order your wine, one to a burner number that pinged off a cell tower 2 blocks from the restaurant, and one to Ortiz. Timestamps? The burner call was at 8:35 p.m., 15 minutes before you were supposed to arrive. The Ortiz call was at 9:47 p.m., right after you would have been served the wine." Adrian closed his eyes, opened them. The waitress, Elena, she said she overheard someone say, "Victor, it's done." That was probably the burner call. Probably, which means Victor hired someone to do the actual poisoning. Keeps his hands clean. Standard playbook for this kind of thing. "Can we prove any of this?" Marcus shook his head. "Not in court. It's all circumstantial. The money could be legitimate business expenses. The insurance is standard practice. The meetings with Ortiz could be consulting work. And the phone calls don't prove intent. So what do we have?" "A theory, a good one, but without hard evidence. A recording, a confession, something concrete." Victor walks. Adrian stood, walked to the window. The city stretched out below him, indifferent and vast. Somewhere down there, Victor was planning his next move, and Adrian had less than 24 hours to figure out how to stop him. "Tonight," Adrian said, "I'm meeting him for dinner. Same restaurant." "That's a bad idea." "I know. He tried to kill you there once. What makes you think he won't try again?" "Because he thinks it worked." Adrian turned back to Marcus. "Think about it. He ordered the wine. He was late. He never saw me drink it. For all he knows, I went home, got sick, maybe died in my sleep. He's probably waiting for the call right now. So what's your plan? Drink another poisoned glass and hope for the best?" "No, I'm going to make him think I suspect something, push him, see how he reacts." Marcus stared at him. "You're using yourself as bait." "I'm using myself as proof. If I rattle him enough, he'll make a mistake. Call someone. Meet with Ortiz. Do something we can document. Or he'll just kill you faster. That's why you're going to be there." Adrian pointed to the folder. "I need surveillance. Audio, video, whatever you can set up without him noticing. And I need you close. If things go wrong, you'll be dead before I can stop it." "Then don't let things go wrong." Marcus picked up the folder, shook his head. "You're paying me too much to say no, but for the record, this is insane." "Noted." After Marcus left, Adrian spent the rest of the day preparing. He called his lawyer and updated his will. If something happened tonight, he wanted Max taken care of properly. Not by Victor. Never by Victor. He named his sister in Boston as Max's guardian and trustee of the estate until Max turned 18. Then he called his sister. "Adrian? It's 10 a.m. on a Friday. Why are you calling me?" "Just checking in." "You never just check in. What's wrong?" He hesitated. Sarah was 3 years younger, a high school teacher with 2 kids and a husband who coached Little League. She lived a normal life. Safe, boring. The kind of life Adrian had stopped being able to imagine after Max was born, and the company became his entire world. "If something happens to me," Adrian said carefully, "I need you to take care of Max." Silence. Then, "What do you mean, if something happens to you?" "Just hypothetically." "Adrian, I updated my will. You're listed as his guardian. I wanted you to know." "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared. It's just paperwork, precaution." "Bullshit. Tell me what's going on." He wanted to tell her everything. The poisoned wine, the betrayal, the merger that was really a trap. But if he told her, she'd worry. Or worse, she'd try to stop him. Call the police, make noise. And noise would tip Victor off. "I can't," Adrian said. "Not yet. But if anything happens, nothing's going to happen." "But if it does, you'll take him, raise him?" "Of course I will. He's my nephew. But Adrian, you're freaking me out here." I know, I'm sorry, I needed to hear you say it. He hung up before she could ask more questions. Then he sat at his desk and wrote a letter to Max. Sealed it in an envelope marked, "Open only if I don't come home." He put it in his desk drawer, locked it, and tried not to think about the fact that he was writing goodbye letters at 32 years old. The afternoon dragged. He worked, or pretended to, answered emails, took calls, smiled at people who had no idea their boss might be dead by morning. At 6 p.m., he went home. Max was in the yard with the nanny, kicking a soccer ball against the fence. Adrian watched from the kitchen window, memorizing the scene. The way Max laughed when he scored, the way he ran, all energy and no coordination. The way he looked back at the house every few minutes, checking to make sure his dad was still there. Adrian stepped outside. "Hey, buddy, come here." Max ran over, breathing hard. "Did you see? I almost got it in the top corner." "I saw. That was good. Are you going out again tonight?" "Yeah, just for a little while." Max's face fell. "You're always going out." "I know. I'm sorry." "You said we'd watch the game." Adrian knelt down, eye level with his son. "Tomorrow. I promise. We'll watch the whole game, just you and me, pizza, soda, the works." "Promise?" "Promise." Max hugged him, quick and tight, then ran back to the soccer ball. Adrian stood there watching, feeling the weight of that promise. He'd made a lot of promises to Max over the years. Some he'd kept, some he'd broken. This one he needed to keep. At 7 p.m., he showered and dressed. Dark suit, no tie. He checked his reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked older, tired, like someone who'd been fighting too long and was starting to wonder if winning was even possible. He drove to Luminaire alone. Marcus was already there, posing as a customer at the bar, nursing a drink and watching the room through the mirror behind the bottles. He'd set up 2 hidden cameras, one in the centerpiece on Adrian's usual table, one in a coat hook on the wall. Audio recorders in the salt shaker and the candle holder. Elena was working tonight. Adrian had texted her earlier, told her to act normal, serve his table if she could. She'd agreed, though her response had been shaky. What if something happens again? Adrian had written back, "Then you run. Don't be a hero twice." He arrived at 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes early. He wanted time to think, to breathe, to settle his nerves before Victor showed up with his smile and his lies and his plans to finish what the poison had started. The hostess led him to the same table as before. 3rd floor, corner position, windows overlooking the city. Adrian sat facing the door so he could see Victor arrive. The waitress, not Elena, brought water and asked if he wanted to start with wine. "Not yet," Adrian said, "waiting for someone." Victor arrived at exactly 8 p.m., punctual this time. Interesting. He wore a charcoal suit and a grin that suggested he'd had a good day. "Adrian." He slid into the chair opposite. "You look like hell." "Thanks." "No, seriously, you okay?" "Fine. Just a long week." Victor flagged down the waitress and ordered a bottle of wine without consulting Adrian. The same vintage as last time. Chateau Margaux, 2015. Adrian's pulse quickened. "So," Victor said, leaning back in his chair, "how's Max?" "Good." "Still playing soccer?" "Yeah." "You should bring him by the office sometime. The team would love to meet him." "Maybe." The wine arrived. The waitress poured 2 glasses. Victor raised his immediately. "To the merger," he said. Adrian didn't move, just stared at the glass in front of him. Victor frowned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Then drink." "I'm not thirsty." "It's a toast, Adrian. You don't have to be thirsty." Adrian picked up the glass, held it to the light, examined the color, the clarity. Victor watched him, smile fading slightly. "What are you doing?" Victor asked. "Making sure it's the right vintage." "It's wine, not poison." The word hung between them. Adrian set the glass down without drinking. "Funny you should mention poison," Adrian said. Victor went very still. "What?" "I had an interesting conversation yesterday. With a waitress. She said she saw something strange last week. Someone tampering with my drink." Victor's expression didn't change. didn't flicker. But something shifted in his eyes, a calculation happening faster than words. That's a serious accusation, Victor said carefully. It's not an accusation, it's a fact. And you believe her? Some random waitress? I believe what I found when I started looking into it. Adrian pulled out his phone, opened a photo of the offshore account statements Marcus had uncovered, slid the phone across the table. $500,000 moved to the Caymans. Want to explain that? Victor glanced at the phone, then back at Adrian. His face was calm, too calm. That's a legitimate business transfer, Victor said, for the Singapore expansion. Really? Because it went through 3 shell companies before landing in an account under your name. I don't have to explain my financial decisions to you. Actually, you do. We're partners, remember? Victor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Is that what this is about? You're having second thoughts about the merger? I'm having second thoughts about you. Adrian. Victor leaned forward, voice dropping to something quieter, more dangerous. I don't know what you think you've found, but you're wrong. I'm not your enemy. Then who is? I don't know, but it's not me. Adrian took a breath, pushed harder. The life insurance policy, $2 million. Beneficiary clause that pays out to you if I die while you're running the company. That sound familiar? Victor's jaw tightened. That's standard mortality planning. No, it's not. It's a contingency, a backup plan in case the poison didn't work. You're paranoid. Am I? Because right now, sitting here, I'm trying to figure out if you're going to try again. Maybe not poison this time. Maybe something more direct. Victor stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. People at nearby tables glanced over. I'm done with this conversation, Victor said. Sit down. No, I came here to have dinner with my partner, not get accused of murder. Sit down. Something in Adrian's voice made Victor pause. He sat, but his hands were clenched on the armrests. Let me tell you what I think happened, Adrian said quietly. I think you've been planning this for months. The offshore accounts, the insurance policy. The consultant you've been meeting with, David Ortiz, right? I think you saw the merger as an opportunity. Not to build something together, but to take what I built and make it yours. And when I didn't die fast enough, you decided to help things along. Victor stared at him. You can't prove any of this. Not yet. But I will. Even if you could, what then? You go to the police? You sue me? You make a scene? Victor leaned in, voice low and vicious. You'll destroy the company trying to destroy me. And for what? Some conspiracy theory fed to you by a waitress? She saved my life. She's lying. Why would she lie? I don't know. Money? Attention? Maybe she's working for someone who wants to see us fight. Ever think of that? Adrian hadn't. The thought caught him off guard, and Victor saw it. That's right, Victor said. You're so focused on me, you're not seeing the bigger picture. Someone's playing you, Adrian, and you're falling for it. You're good, Adrian said. I'll give you that. You almost sound convincing. I'm telling you the truth. No, you're telling me what you need me to believe so I don't look too close, but I'm already looking, and I'm going to keep looking until I find what you're hiding. Victor stood again. This time, he didn't sit back down. This partnership was a mistake, he said. Yeah, it was. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. We'll dissolve the merger. Good luck with that. You signed a contract. Contracts can be broken. Not without cause, and not without a fight. Victor grabbed his coat from the back of the chair, leaned in close enough that Adrian could smell his cologne, the same expensive brand he'd worn the night he'd tried to kill him. Be careful, Adrian, Victor said softly. You're making enemies you can't afford. I only have one enemy, and he's standing right in front of me. Victor left without another word. Adrian sat alone at the table, heart pounding, watching him disappear down the stairs. Across the room, Marcus caught his eye and gave a small nod. The cameras had gotten everything. Elena appeared at his side, shaking slightly. Are you okay? She whispered. Yeah. He looked like he wanted to kill you right here. Probably did. What happens now? Adrian stood, pulled cash from his wallet and left it on the table. Enough to cover the wine they hadn't drunk, and a tip that would keep Elena stable for a month. Now, Adrian said, we wait and see what he does next. He walked out of Luminaire into the cool night air. His phone buzzed before he reached his car. Text from Marcus. Got it all. Audio's clean, video's clear. This is enough to prove you confronted him. Maybe not enough to prove he tried to kill you, but it's a start. Adrian typed back. Meet me at the office in an hour. And bring everything you have on Ortiz. He drove home first, paid the nanny, checked on Max, who was asleep with the stuffed elephant clutched against his chest. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching him breathe, and made a promise to himself. Not to Max, to himself. He was going to win this, no matter what it cost. An hour later, he was back in his office. Marcus was already there, spreading documents across the conference table like pieces of a puzzle. Ortiz met with Victor 3 hours ago, Marcus said, right after your dinner. I had someone tailing Victor when he left the restaurant. He went straight to that bar downtown, stayed for 20 minutes, left with a briefcase he didn't arrive with. Any idea what was in it? No, but Ortiz looked pleased. Adrian studied the documents. Phone records, bank statements, surveillance photos. Everything pointed to a conspiracy, but nothing proved it beyond reasonable doubt. We need more, Adrian said. More what? Evidence. Something that ties Victor directly to the poisoning, or to a plan to kill me. Short of a confession, I don't know how we get that. Adrian thought for a moment, then pulled out his phone and dialed Elena's number. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Vale? Elena, the man you saw at the bar. The one who put something in my drink. Do you think you could identify him from a photo? Maybe. I don't know. It was dark. But you'd recognize him if you saw him again? I think so. Why? Because I need you to look at some pictures. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I have a shift. I'll pay you for the time, please. This is important. She hesitated. Then, okay. What time? 9 a.m. After they hung up, Adrian pulled up surveillance footage from the bar where Victor met with Ortiz. He scrolled through hours of video until he found what he was looking for. A man in a dark suit entering at 8:30 p.m. the night of the poisoning. The same man leaving at 8:50 p.m. Adrian froze the frame, enhanced the image. The man's face was partially obscured, but his watch was visible. Gold Rolex, same model as Victor's. Marcus, Adrian said, run facial recognition on this. See if it matches anyone in Ortiz's known associates. Marcus took the image. This might take a while. I've got time. They worked through the night. Coffee and documents and grainy surveillance footage. By 4 a.m., they had a name. Thomas Reed. Former pharmaceutical sales rep. Fired 3 years ago for falsifying medical records. Known associate of David Ortiz, last known address in Queens. By 6 a.m., Marcus had tracked Reed's recent activity. Credit card purchases at a hardware store. Gloves, bleach, trash bags. The kind of purchases someone made when they needed to clean up evidence. By 7 a.m., they had enough to go to the police. Maybe, if the police believed them. If they didn't think Adrian was just a paranoid billionaire trying to sabotage his own business partner. We need insurance, Adrian said. What kind of insurance? The kind that makes sure if something happens to me, Victor goes down too. He spent the next 2 hours writing everything down. Every detail. Every piece of evidence. Every conversation. He saved it to a secure cloud server with instructions to release it to the police, the media, and his lawyer if he didn't log in within 72 hours. Then he went home. Max was already awake, eating cereal in the kitchen. You promised we'd watch the game, Max said. I know, and we will, tonight. I promise. You said that yesterday. This time I mean it. Max studied him with the kind of skepticism only a 6-year-old could muster. You look tired. I am tired. Did you sleep? Not really. Why not? Just work stuff. You're always doing work stuff. Adrian sat down beside his son, put his arm around him. I know, and I'm sorry, but I'm trying to fix it so I can spend more time with you. Promise? Promise. Max leaned against him, small and warm and trusting in a way that made Adrian's chest ache. He held his son close and wondered what kind of world he was leaving him. A world where people like Victor existed, where betrayal came dressed in friendship, where poison came in wine glasses and death came wearing a Rolex. His phone buzzed, Text from an unknown number. You should have died when you had the chance. Adrian stared at the message, then showed it to Marcus, who'd followed him home and was standing in the kitchen doorway. That's a threat, Marcus said. Yeah. We need to go to the police, now. And tell them what? That I got a mean text? They'll laugh me out of the station. This is evidence of intent. It's evidence of someone with my phone number being an asshole. Could be Victor, could be Reed, could be some random person who read about the merger online and doesn't like billionaires. Marcus pulled out his own phone. I'm calling a contact at the precinct, someone who owes me a favor. Don't. Not yet. Adrian. I said not yet. We play this wrong. Victor walks. And I can't. He glanced at Max, who was watching cartoons and pretending not to listen. I can't let that happen. Marcus put his phone away, but his expression said he thought Adrian was making a mistake. Maybe he was, but mistakes were all he had left. Elena arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, looking like she hadn't slept either. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She clutched her purse against her chest like it might protect her from whatever was coming next. Adrian met her in the lobby and led her upstairs to the conference room where Marcus had arranged a dozen photographs on the table. Men in suits, men in casual clothes. Some young, some old. Thomas Reed was third from the left, mixed in with people who had nothing to do with Victor or the poisoning or anything else. Take your time, Adrian said. Look at each one carefully. Elena moved slowly down the line, studying each face. She stopped at Reed. Her hand went to her mouth. That's him, she whispered. You're sure? Yes. I remember the jaw and the eyes. He looked angry, like he was doing something he didn't want to do but had to anyway. Marcus stepped forward. Would you be willing to testify to that? In court, if it comes to it? Elena looked at Adrian. Will I be safe? I'll make sure of it, Adrian said, though he wasn't sure he could promise that. Wasn't sure he could keep anyone safe, including himself. She nodded slowly. Then, yes, I'll testify. After Elena left, Adrian and Marcus spent another hour going through Reed's background. The pharmaceutical connection was interesting. Reed had access to drugs, knowledge of dosages, the kind of expertise you'd need to poison someone without it being immediately obvious. We need to find him, Adrian said. Get him to talk. That's police work, not ours. The police will take weeks. I don't have weeks. Victor's planning something. I can feel it. Then let me handle Reed. You stay visible. Go to work. Act normal. Make Victor think you're backing off. Adrian shook his head. I'm done acting normal. I want Victor scared. I want him making mistakes. He's already making mistakes. The threat text. Meeting with Ortiz right after your confrontation. These are panic moves. Good. Let him panic. Marcus gathered the photographs. You're playing a dangerous game. I've been playing it since the moment I signed that merger. I just didn't know the rules yet. The weekend passed in a strange, suspended state. Adrian took Max to soccer practice Saturday morning, sat on the bleachers with other parents, and pretended to care about drills and formations while his phone buzzed with updates from Marcus. Reed's apartment was empty. His car hadn't moved in 3 days. His credit cards hadn't been used since Thursday. Either Reed was hiding or someone had made sure he couldn't talk. Sunday morning, Adrian kept his promise. He and Max watched the entire football game, ate pizza, drank soda, acted like everything was fine. Max scored imaginary touchdowns during commercial breaks, and Adrian cheered like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. Maybe if he could hold on to these moments, these normal, boring, beautiful moments, he could survive whatever was coming. That night, after Max went to bed, Adrian sat in his home office and went through the merger agreement one more time. He'd read it a dozen times already, but he kept looking for something he'd missed. Some clause, some loophole, some way to break the contract without destroying everything. His phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, then did. Hello? Adrian Vale? The voice was unfamiliar, male, nervous. Who is this? My name's Thomas Reed. I think we need to talk. Adrian's pulse spiked. He put the phone on speaker and waved at Marcus, who was sitting across the room reviewing security footage. I'm listening, Adrian said. Not on the phone, in person. Tomorrow, noon. There's a park near the river, Riverside Park by the old pier. You know it? I can find it. Come alone. If I see anyone else, I'm gone. How do I know this isn't a trap? Reed laughed, but it sounded broken. If I wanted you dead, Mr. Vale, you'd already be dead. I'm the guy who put the poison in your wine, remember? The line went dead. Adrian stared at the phone. Marcus was already on his feet. That's a trap, Marcus said. Probably. You're not going. I have to. No, you don't. We call the police. Tell them Reed reached out. Let them handle it. And what if he runs before they get there? What if he's the only person who can tie Victor to the poisoning and he disappears? Then we find another way. There is no other way. Adrian stood. Reed called me. Not the police. Not a lawyer. Me. That means he wants something. And whatever it is, I need to hear it. I'm coming with you. He said alone. I don't care what he said. I'm not letting you walk into a park to meet with the guy who tried to kill you without backup. They argued for another 10 minutes before reaching a compromise. Marcus would come, but stay out of sight, far enough away that Reed wouldn't see him, close enough to intervene if things went wrong. Adrian didn't love the plan, but it was better than going alone. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Adrian dropped Max at school, kissed him goodbye, and watched him run toward the building with his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. He wanted to call him back, hold him, tell him everything. But Max was 6. He didn't need to know his father was meeting with someone who'd tried to murder him. Riverside Park was empty when Adrian arrived. Just dead grass and bare trees and the kind of cold that made you question why anyone lived this far north. The old pier stretched out into water that looked too dirty to support life. Reed was standing at the end of it, hands in his pockets, staring at the river like he was trying to decide whether to jump. Adrian approached slowly. Reed heard him coming. The pier creaked with every step, but didn't turn around. You came, Reed said. You asked. I wasn't sure you would. Figured you'd bring cops, or lawyers, or an army. Just me. Reed finally turned. He looked worse in person than in the photographs. Thinner, older, like the weight of what he'd done had physically aged him. I didn't want to do it, Reed said. The poison. I want you to know that. But you did it anyway. Yeah, I did. Why? Reed pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it with shaking hands. Money. Why else? I'm 43 years old, unemployed, living in a shithole apartment in Queens. Victor Hale shows up offering me $50,000 to drop something in your drink. $50,000. That's more than I made in 2 years at my last job. So you said yes. So I said yes. Reed took a drag, exhaled smoke that the wind carried away. He told me it wasn't lethal, said it would just make you sick. Sick enough that you'd miss some meetings, sign some papers without reading them too carefully. He made it sound reasonable, like a prank. You believed him? I wanted to believe him. There's a difference. Adrian moved closer. What was in the vial? I don't know. Victor gave it to me in a sealed container, said it was tasteless, odorless, would dissolve in alcohol. I didn't ask questions. Where's the vial now? Gone. I threw it in the river right after I left the restaurant. Convenient. Smart. I'm not stupid, Mr. Vale. I knew if you died, if they did an autopsy and found something, they'd trace it back to me eventually. Destroying evidence was the only play I had. Then why call me now? Why not just disappear? Reed flicked ash into the water. Because Victor's trying to kill me too. The words hung between them. Explain, Adrian said. Saturday morning, I get a call from David Ortiz. You know who that is? Yeah. He says Victor wants to meet, tie up loose ends. He gives me an address, some warehouse in Brooklyn. I show up and there's 2 guys waiting. Not Victor, just these 2 guys I've never seen before. They tell me to get in their car. I tell them to go to hell. They pull guns. I run. You think they were going to kill you? I know they were going to kill me. I saw it in their eyes. Same look Victor had when he handed me that vial. Like I was already dead, just didn't know it yet. Adrian believed him. Not because Reed seemed trustworthy, he didn't, but because it made sense. Victor was cleaning up, eliminating witnesses, making sure no one could connect him to the poisoning. Do you have proof? Adrian asked. Anything that ties Victor to this? Just my word. That's not enough. I know. Reed dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his shoe. But I can get more. Victor's meeting with Ortiz again. Wednesday night, same bar downtown where they always meet. If you can record that conversation, if you can get Victor on tape admitting what he did, that's your proof. How do you know about the meeting? Because Ortiz called me again yesterday, said Victor wants to apologize, make things right, offer me more money to keep quiet. Reed laughed bitterly. Like I'm stupid enough to fall for that twice. Are you going? Hell no. But you could, or someone you trust could. Get close enough to record them. Victor's paranoid, but he's not careful. He talks too much when he thinks he's safe. Adrian considered it. A recording would be exactly what they needed. Direct evidence. Victor's own words. But getting that recording meant putting someone in danger. And the only person Victor wouldn't immediately recognize was, "I'll do it," came a voice behind them. Adrian turned. Elena was walking down the pier, her jacket pulled tight against the cold. Marcus was behind her, looking furious. "She followed us," Marcus said. "I tried to stop her." "I want to help," Elena said, looking at Adrian. "You said I'd be safe, but I won't be safe until Victor's in prison. None of us will." "This isn't your fight," Adrian said. "Yes, it is. He tried to kill you, and when I stopped him, I made it my fight." Reed stared at her. "You're the waitress. The one who switched the glasses." "Yeah." "You saved his life." "Apparently not well enough, since you're still trying to finish the job." Reed flinched. I'm trying to make this right." "By getting someone else to do your dirty work?" Elena stepped closer. "You want to make things right? Go to the police, confess, tell them everything." "I can't. Victor will have me killed before I make it to the station." "Then you're a coward." "Yeah, I am, but I'm a coward who wants to live." Reed looked at Adrian. "Wednesday night, 9 p.m. That bar on 7th Avenue. Get someone in there with a wire and you'll have everything you need." He walked past them, down the pier, toward a car parked at the edge of the lot. Adrian watched him go, knowing there was a good chance Reed wouldn't survive until Wednesday. Victor was thorough. He wouldn't leave loose ends untied. "We're not sending Elena in there," Marcus said once Reed was gone. "I'm standing right here," Elena said, "and I can make my own decisions. It's too dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. At least this way I'm doing something." Adrian looked at her. Really looked at her. She was scared. He could see it in the way she held herself, the tension in her shoulders. But she was also determined, the kind of determined that came from having nothing left to lose. "You don't have to do this," Adrian said. "I know. If you get caught, if Victor figures out you're recording him, then I'll deal with it. But I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of working double shifts just to make rent. I'm tired of watching people like Victor walk all over people like me." She took a breath. "You asked me why I switched the glasses that night. It wasn't just because I wanted to save you. It was because I'm sick of men like him thinking they can do whatever they want without consequences." Adrian glanced at Marcus, who shook his head, but Adrian made the call anyway. "Okay," he said. "We'll do it. But we do it right. No improvising. No heroics. You go in, you record the conversation, you leave. That's it." Elena nodded. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Marcus got a wire from a contact who didn't ask questions. Tiny microphone, digital recorder, nearly invisible once it was properly placed. They ran practice sessions in Adrian's office, Elena pretending to order drinks at the bar while Marcus monitored the audio quality from a van parked outside. She was good at it. Better than Adrian expected. She had a way of blending in, of making herself forgettable. The kind of skill you developed when you'd spent years serving rich people who barely noticed you existed. Tuesday night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Victor recognizing Elena. The wire malfunctioning. Ortiz getting suspicious. He thought about calling it off. Going to the police with what they had. Taking the chance that circumstantial evidence and Reed's testimony would be enough. But he knew it wouldn't be. Victor had lawyers, money, connections. He'd find a way to make it all disappear. And then he'd come after Adrian again. Next time, there wouldn't be a waitress to switch the glasses. Wednesday arrived. The day dragged. Adrian went through the motions at work, but his mind was elsewhere. At 5 p.m., his phone rang. Victor's name on the screen. Adrian answered. "Yeah?" "Adrian, we need to talk." "I thought we said everything Friday night." "Not about the merger, About Max. Adrian's blood went cold. What about Max? I was thinking, with everything that's happened between us, maybe it's not good for him to be caught in the middle. Kids pick up on tension. I'd hate for him to get hurt because we're having business disagreements. Are you threatening my son? What? No, Jesus, Adrian. I'm trying to be considerate. I'm saying maybe we should keep our problems separate from our personal lives. I care about that kid. Stay away from him. I'm just saying that I heard what you said, and I'm telling you, stay away from my son. Adrian hung up. His hands were shaking. Marcus, who'd been sitting across from him, stood immediately. What did he say? He mentioned Max, said something about keeping him out of the middle. That's a threat. I know. We need to move Max somewhere safe. Your sister's place, maybe. Adrian called Sarah, explained the situation without explaining the situation. Said there were some business problems, some people who might try to use Max to get to him. Could she take him for a few days, just until things settled? Sarah agreed without hesitation. By 6 p.m., Max was packed and confused and asking questions Adrian couldn't answer. Why do I have to go to Aunt Sarah's? Max asked in the car. Just for a little while, until Dad fixes some things at work. Is it because of that man? The one from your office? Adrian glanced at him in the rearview mirror. What man? The one with the nice watch. He came by school yesterday, said he was your friend, asked the teacher if he could talk to me. Adrian nearly drove off the road. Did you talk to him? No. Miss Peterson said I couldn't leave class, but he waited by the fence during recess. Waved at me. Adrian pulled over, turned around in his seat. Max, listen to me. If you ever see that man again, if he ever tries to talk to you, you run. You find a teacher, a police officer, any adult, and you tell them, okay? Max's eyes went wide. Okay. I'm serious, buddy. This is important. I know, Dad, you're scaring me. Good. Be scared. Just be safe. They drove the rest of the way to Sarah's in silence. Adrian walked Max to the door, hugged him tight, and told Sarah to keep the doors locked and call him if anyone suspicious came around. Adrian, what's going on? Sarah asked. I'll explain later. Just keep him safe. Back in the car, Adrian called Marcus. Victor approached my son's school yesterday. What? Max said he was waiting by the fence, tried to talk to him. That's it. I'm calling the police. Not yet. Not until after tonight. If we spook Victor now, he'll run. Cancel the meeting. We'll lose our shot. Your kid's safety is more important than a recording. My kid's safe. He's with Sarah. And Victor doesn't know that. He thinks Max is still home, still vulnerable. That gives us an advantage. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. At 8 p.m., they met Elena in a parking garage 2 blocks from the bar. Marcus fitted her with the wire, running the microphone up under her shirt, taping it carefully so it wouldn't shift or make noise. The recorder went in her jacket pocket, disguised to look like a phone. Remember, Marcus said, you're just a customer. You order a drink. You sit at the bar. If Victor and Ortiz are there, you listen. That's it. Don't engage. Don't draw attention. Just listen and record. Elena nodded. She looked pale, but steady. What if they're not there? She asked. Then you finish your drink and leave. We'll figure out another approach. And if they recognize me? They won't. Victor's only seen you once in dim lighting while you were working. You're in different clothes now, different hair. You'll be fine. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Adrian put a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Why? She looked at him. Because someone has to. They walked her to the bar entrance. She went in alone. Adrian and Marcus returned to the van, parked across the street with a clear view of the door. Marcus pulled up the audio feed. Static for a moment, then the sounds of the bar. Music, conversation, the clink of glasses. Elena's voice steady and clear. Whiskey. Neat. They waited. 9 p.m. came and went. No Victor, no Ortiz. Just Elena sitting at the bar, nursing her drink, pretending to check her phone. At 9:17 p.m., the door opened. Adrian recognized Victor immediately. Even on the grainy security feed Marcus had tapped into, he was unmistakable. Ortiz followed him. They took a table in the back corner. ordered drinks. Elena didn't move, just sat there, 20 feet away, the microphone picking up fragments of conversation over the ambient noise. Marcus adjusted the audio settings, filtered out background frequencies, and suddenly, Victor's voice came through clear. "Told you to handle Reed. Why is he still a problem?" Ortiz's response was quieter, harder to hear. "He ran. My guys lost him. Then find him. He knows too much." "What about the waitress, the one who switched the glasses?" "What about her?" "Reed said she saw him. If she talks, she won't. She's nobody. Who's going to believe her?" "Still, loose ends make me nervous." Victor laughed. "Everything makes you nervous. Relax. Adrian's backing off. I can feel it. He's scared." "You sure about that? He seemed pretty convinced when he confronted you." "That was adrenaline. By now he's realized he can't prove anything. And once the news breaks tomorrow, he won't have time to worry about me." "What news?" "The fraud investigation. I've been feeding the SEC information for weeks. Fake invoices, offshore transfers, all traced back to Adrian. Tomorrow morning, they're going to arrest him." Adrian's stomach dropped. "You set him up," Ortiz said. "I created reasonable doubt. When he dies, and he will die, one way or another, no one's going to ask too many questions. They'll just think the stress got to him. Guilty conscience, tragic suicide." "And the kid? What about him?" "The son. He inherits. Not if Adrian's convicted of fraud. Assets get frozen. Company goes into receivership. And guess who's positioned to buy it for pennies on the dollar?" Victor raised his glass. Ortiz clinked it with his own. In the van, Adrian couldn't breathe. "We got it," Marcus said. "Every word. This is enough. Conspiracy, attempted murder, fraud. We can take this to the police right now." But Adrian was already moving, out of the van, across the street, through the bar door. "Adrian, wait." He didn't wait. He walked straight to Victor's table. Victor saw him coming and his smile vanished. "Adrian, what?" Adrian grabbed him by the collar, pulled him halfway across the table. "You're done," Adrian said. Victor shoved him back. People were staring now. Ortiz stood, reaching for something in his jacket. "You need to leave," Victor said quietly. "Right now." "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. You're making a scene." "Good. Let them watch." Ortiz pulled a gun, not large, just enough. He kept it low, pointed at Adrian's stomach where most people wouldn't see it. "Walk away," Ortiz said. Adrian looked at the gun, then at Victor. Then he did something stupid. He smiled. "You're going to shoot me here, in front of 50 witnesses?" "If I have to." "Then do it, because I'm not leaving until everyone in this room knows what you did." For a moment, no one moved. Then the bar door burst open and Marcus came through with 4 cops behind him. Real cops. Uniforms. Badges. "Nobody move!" one of them shouted. Ortiz dropped the gun. Victor sat back down slowly, hands visible on the table. The bar erupted into chaos. People shouting, pushing toward the exits, pulling out phones to record. Marcus grabbed Adrian's arm. "You said wait!" "I didn't feel like waiting." One of the cops, a detective named Morrison, who Marcus had called before they'd even left the parking garage, approached Victor's table. "Victor Hale?" "Yes. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and fraud." They cuffed him right there. Read him his rights while patrons recorded on their phones, and the bartender tried unsuccessfully to restore order. Victor didn't resist, just kept his eyes on Adrian the whole time. "This won't stick," Victor said. "My lawyers will have me out by morning." "Maybe," Adrian said. "But everyone knows now. Your reputation's done. Your business is done. You're done." Victor smiled. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming." They dragged him toward the door. Ortiz, too, cuffed and silent. Elena appeared at Adrian's side, breathing hard. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah. You?" "I think so. I can't believe that worked." It almost didn't. Detective Morrison approached with a digital recorder. "We need your statements. All of you. And we'll need that wire recording as evidence." They gave statements. All 3 of them. It took hours. By the time they finished, it was past midnight, and Adrian felt like he'd aged 10 years. He drove home in silence. The house was empty without Max. Too quiet. Too big. He sat in the living room with all the lights off and tried to process what had just happened. Victor was arrested. The evidence was solid. The recording, the witness statements, Reed's eventual testimony once they tracked him down. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow, because Victor had been right about one thing. The fraud charges were real. The SEC investigation was real. And even if Adrian proved Victor had planted the evidence, the accusation alone would destroy him. Clients would pull contracts. Investors would flee. The company would collapse. Everything he'd built, everything he'd protected, gone. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Check your email. Adrian opened his laptop. One new message, no subject line, just an attachment. He clicked it. A video file. 30 seconds long. Security footage from inside Victor's office. Dated 3 weeks ago. Victor sitting at his desk, talking to someone off camera. The audio was clear. Once Adrian's arrested, the company's mine. Transfer the funds and make sure the invoices look legitimate. I want this airtight. The person off camera responded, "What about the kid?" "What about him? He's 6. He'll go to family. We'll deal with the inheritance later." The video ended. Adrian stared at the screen. This was it. Proof that Victor had orchestrated the entire fraud scheme. Proof that would clear Adrian's name completely. But who sent it? Another text. "Consider us even. T.R. Thomas Reed." Adrian leaned back, closed his eyes. Somewhere out there, Reed was running, hiding, trying to stay alive long enough to avoid Victor's reach. And he'd just handed Adrian the one thing that could save everything. The next morning, Adrian walked into the FBI field office and gave them the video. By noon, the fraud charges against him were dropped. By evening, the news was running stories about Victor's arrest. By the time Adrian picked up Max from Sarah's house, the nightmare was starting to feel like something that had happened to someone else. But it wasn't over yet. Victor made bail within 18 hours. $2 million posted by a lawyer Adrian had never heard of, representing interests Adrian couldn't trace. The news hit while Adrian was sitting in his office trying to salvage what remained of his company's reputation. His phone lit up with alerts, and his stomach turned over. Marcus was there within minutes, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed. "He's out," Marcus said. "I saw. House arrest, ankle monitor. He's not supposed to leave his apartment or contact you in any way." "You believe that'll stop him?" Marcus didn't answer. They both knew it wouldn't. The next 72 hours became a waiting game. Adrian hired 3 different security firms to monitor his house, Max's school, the office building. He changed his routes to work, varied his schedule, stopped going anywhere predictable. Max noticed the changes but didn't understand them, kept asking why they couldn't go to their favorite diner anymore, why Dad checked the locks 3 times every night. "Just being careful," Adrian told him. "Careful of what?" "Nothing you need to worry about." But Max was 6, not stupid. He knew something was wrong. The media circus didn't help. Victor's arrest made headlines for a week straight. Business networks ran specials about corporate betrayal. True crime podcasts started covering it before the trial even had a date. Adrian's face was everywhere, along with photos of Victor being led out of the bar in handcuffs, photos of Elena looking shocked outside the courthouse, photos of Luminaire with a caption about poison and privilege. Adrian's phone rang constantly, investors wanting reassurance, board members demanding explanations, clients asking whether their contracts were still valid. He spent 12 hours a day putting out fires, and new ones kept sparking. Thursday afternoon, his lawyer called. "We have a problem," Jim said. Adrian closed his office door. "What kind of problem?" Victor's legal team filed a motion to suppress the recording. They're claiming it was obtained illegally, that Elena wasn't law enforcement, didn't have a warrant, violated wiretapping statutes. She was a private citizen recording a conversation in a public place. It's more complicated than that. The laws vary by state, and Victor's lawyers are arguing she intentionally deceived him, that there was an expectation of privacy in that corner booth. That's insane. That's expensive lawyers. The hearing's Monday. If the judge suppresses the recording, we lose our strongest evidence. Adrian sat down. What about the video Reed sent? The one showing Victor orchestrating the fraud. That helps with the fraud charges, but it doesn't directly tie him to the poisoning or the attempted murder. Without the bar recording, it's your word against his, and Reed's, if we ever find him. So find him. The FBI's looking, so is NYPD. He's vanished. After Jim hung up, Adrian sat in silence. Victor was out on bail, the evidence was in jeopardy, and their star witness had disappeared. Everything they'd built over the past 2 weeks was crumbling. His phone buzzed. Text from Elena. Can we talk? They met at a coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of them usually frequented. Elena looked worse than she had at the bar. Thinner, more tired, like the weight of what she'd done was finally catching up. I heard about the motion to suppress, she said. Yeah. If they throw out the recording, does that mean it means Victor walks on the murder charges? Maybe gets convicted for fraud, maybe not. Either way, he's back on the street in a few years. Elena stirred her coffee without drinking it. This is my fault. No, it's not. I should have let the police handle it. Should have gone through official channels. I wanted to help. You did help. You saved my life twice. Once with the wine glass, once with the recording. Whatever happens now isn't on you. Feels like it is. Adrian understood. He felt the same way. Like every decision he'd made had led them deeper into this mess. And now, there was no clear way out. I got another job offer, Elena said quietly. Restaurant in Boston. Better pay. They said I could start Monday. You're leaving? I don't know. I want to. But if I leave, if I'm not here for the trial, then you're safe, and you deserve to be safe. What about you? I'll figure it out. She looked at him like she didn't believe him. He didn't blame her. That weekend, Adrian took Max to Sarah's again. Told him it was just for a few days, just until some work stuff got sorted out. Max didn't fight it this time. Just packed his bag and got in the car without complaint. When they arrived, he hugged Adrian longer than usual. You're coming back, right? Max asked. Of course. Promise? Promise. But driving away, watching Max's small figure in the rearview mirror, Adrian wondered if that was a promise he could keep. Sunday night, Marcus showed up at Adrian's house with a bottle of whiskey and a folder full of new information. Drink first, Marcus said, pouring 2 glasses. Then read. Adrian drank, then opened the folder. Inside were financial records Marcus had obtained through channels Adrian suspected weren't entirely legal. Victor's accounts, money trails, transactions dating back 18 months, not just 3, payments to shell companies, transfers to offshore accounts, and one payment in particular that made Adrian's blood run cold. $50,000 to Thomas Reed, dated 6 months ago. He's been planning this for over a year, Adrian said. Looks like it, and there's more. Marcus flipped to another page. That life insurance policy? It wasn't taken out 3 months ago like we thought. It was backdated, filed last year, amended 3 months ago to increase the payout. How is that legal? It's not, but it's hard to prove unless you know what you're looking for. Adrian kept reading. The payments to Ortiz started 8 months ago. Small consulting fees at first, gradually increasing. The offshore accounts were established a year ago. Everything pointed to a long-term plan, carefully constructed, methodically executed. Victor didn't just wake up one day and decide to kill me, Adrian said. This was always the end game. Yeah, question is, why did he wait so long to make his move? Because he needed me to sign the merger first. Needed everything legal and binding so when I died, he'd have legitimate claim to the company. Marcus poured more whiskey. There's something else. I tracked down Reed's sister in Pittsburgh. She said he called her Wednesday night, said he was going to disappear for a while, that some bad people were looking for him. Did she know where he was going? No, but she said he mentioned something about insurance. Said if anything happened to him, he'd left proof somewhere safe. What kind of proof? She didn't know. Adrian leaned back, thought about it. Reed had sent him the video of Victor. Had that been the insurance he'd mentioned? Or was there more? His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then remembered the last time an unknown number had called. Hello? Mr. Vale? The voice was unfamiliar. Female. Professional. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm an investigative journalist with The Times. I'm working on a story about Victor Hale and the allegations against him. I was hoping we could talk. I'm not giving interviews. I understand, but I think you'll want to hear what I've found. Why? Because I have documents that suggest Victor's been embezzling from your company for over 2 years, and I have a source who claims to have witnessed him discussing your murder in detail. Adrian sat up. What source? I can't reveal that over the phone, but if you're willing to meet, I can show you everything. When? Tomorrow. There's a diner on 5th and West near the courthouse. You know it? Yeah. Noon. Come alone. She hung up before Adrian could respond. Marcus was already shaking his head. That's a trap. Maybe. Definitely. Mysterious journalist claims to have secret evidence, wants to meet alone. That's textbook. Then come with me. Stay out of sight like you did at the park. Adrian, I have to know what she has. If there's more evidence, if there's a witness willing to testify, or if it's Victor's people trying to lure you somewhere isolated. It's a diner, in broad daylight, near a courthouse, not exactly isolated. They argued about it for another hour before Marcus grudgingly agreed, but he made Adrian promise to wear a wire, stay in public view, and leave at the first sign of trouble. Monday morning arrived. The hearing for the motion to suppress was at 2 p.m. Adrian had until then to figure out if Sarah Chen was real or if he was walking into another one of Victor's traps. The diner was half empty when Adrian arrived. Sarah Chen was already there, sitting in a back booth with a laptop and several folders spread across the table. She was maybe 35, Asian, wearing glasses and a blazer that had seen better days. She looked up when Adrian approached. Mr. Vale? Thanks for coming. Adrian slid into the booth across from her. You said you have documents. Isates. Right to business. I like that. She turned the laptop toward him. I've been investigating Victor Hale for 6 months. Started as a piece about corporate fraud, but it became something bigger. On the screen was a spreadsheet. Hundreds of transactions, highlighted in different colors. Money moving between accounts, companies, countries. Victor's been siphoning funds from Vale Industries since the merger talks began, Sarah said. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here, 10,000 there. Nothing that would trigger an audit, but over 2 years it adds up to nearly $3 million. How did you get this? A source inside your accounting department, someone who noticed discrepancies and started tracking them. Who? I can't reveal that, but they're willing to testify if the DA offers immunity. Adrian studied the spreadsheet. The numbers matched what Marcus had found, but Sarah's data went deeper, showed connections Adrian hadn't seen, payments to shell companies that then paid other shell companies before the money finally landed in accounts Victor controlled. What about the witness? Adrian asked. The one who heard Victor discuss my murder. Sarah flipped open one of the folders. Inside was a transcript, handwritten notes, timestamps. David Ortiz kept recordings, she said. Every conversation he had with Victor, going back 8 months. Insurance policy in case Victor ever tried to cut him out or pin everything on him. Where are these recordings? Ortiz's lawyer has them. They're part of his plea deal. He's cooperating with the FBI in exchange for reduced charges. Does Victor know? Not yet. The deal was finalized Friday. It's still sealed. Adrian read through the transcript. Conversations about the poisoning, about framing Adrian for fraud, about making sure Max couldn't inherit if something went wrong. Everything Victor had said at the bar, and more. Much more. This changes everything. That's why I wanted you to see it before the hearing. If the judge suppresses Elena's recording, it won't matter. The FBI has Ortiz's recordings. They're legally obtained. Attorney-client privilege doesn't apply because Ortiz is cooperating. Victor's lawyers can't touch them. Adrian looked at her. Why are you showing me this? Because I think you deserve to know before it goes public. And because I'm writing a story about what happened, and I want to make sure I get it right. When does it publish? Tonight. Whether the hearing goes your way or not. They talked for another 30 minutes. Sarah asked questions. Adrian answered the ones he could, deflected the ones he couldn't. By the time he left, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The hearing started at 2 p.m. Adrian sat in the gallery with his lawyer while Victor sat 3 rows ahead, flanked by his own legal team. Victor didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge Adrian's presence, just sat there in an expensive suit looking like a man who believed he was about to win. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Patricia Holbrook, known for being strict on procedure. She listened to Victor's lawyers argue that Elena's recording violated wiretapping laws, that it was obtained through deception, that allowing it as evidence would set a dangerous precedent. Then she listened to the prosecution argue that Elena was a private citizen, that the conversation took place in a public establishment, that Victor had no reasonable expectation of privacy in a crowded bar. The arguments went back and forth for an hour. Legal precedents, case law, technical details that made Adrian's head hurt. Finally, Judge Holbrook called for a recess, said she'd review the arguments and issue a ruling within 24 hours. Everyone filed out. Adrian was halfway to the exit when Victor's voice stopped him. "Adrian?" He turned. Victor was standing there, alone for once, his lawyers having stepped away to make calls. "What?" Adrian said. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is. You think a recording changes anything? You think some journalist's story is going to destroy me?" Victor smiled. "I've been in this game longer than you. I know how it works. Worst case, I do a few years in minimum security. Best case, I walk. Either way, I survive. Not this time. We'll see." Victor stepped closer, lowered his voice. "But here's what you don't understand. Even if I go to prison, even if you get your company back, your reputation's toast. Clients don't forget. Investors don't forget. You'll spend the rest of your life explaining why you almost got killed by your own partner. That kind of stain doesn't wash off. At least I'll be alive to try. Will you? Because accidents happen, Adrian, even to careful people. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You've made powerful enemies. Ortiz wasn't the only person I worked with, and some of them don't care if I'm in prison or not." Adrian felt Marcus's presence behind him before he saw him. Marcus put a hand on Adrian's shoulder. "Time to go," Marcus said. They left Victor standing there, outside the courthouse. Adrian's hands were shaking again. "He's trying to scare you," Marcus said. "It's working." "Don't let it. He's desperate. People say stupid things when they're desperate." That night, Sarah Chen's story went live. Adrian read it on his laptop while sitting in his empty house, whiskey in hand. She'd done good work, thorough, detailed. She'd connected dots Adrian had missed, interviewed people he'd never thought to contact, and she'd laid out Victor's entire scheme in clear, damning prose. The headline read, "Betrayal at the Top: How a Silicon Valley Partnership Turned Deadly." By morning, it had been shared 10,000 times. News networks were running segments. Other journalists were following up. Victor's name was everywhere, and none of it was good. Adrian's phone rang at 7 a.m. Jim, his lawyer. Judge Holbrook issued her ruling early. The recording stands. She denied the motion to suppress. Adrian closed his eyes. "Thank you. There's more." The DA just announced they're adding charges: embezzlement, racketeering, conspiracy. They're using Ortiz's recordings and the documents from Sarah Chen's story. Victor's arraignment is this afternoon. Will he make bail again? Unlikely. The DA's arguing he's a flight risk, and with everything that's come out, I don't see the judge disagreeing. After they hung up, Adrian sat on his couch and let himself breathe. Really breathe. For the first time in 2 weeks, he felt like the walls weren't closing in. His phone buzzed. Text from Elena. "I saw the news. We did it." Adrian typed back, "You did it. Thank you." Her response came quickly. "I took the job in Boston, leaving Friday. But I wanted to say goodbye first. Can we meet?" They met at the same coffee shop Wednesday afternoon. Elena looked better. Not happy exactly, but lighter. Like she'd put down something heavy she'd been carrying too long. "Boston's supposed to be nice," Adrian said. "Yeah, better than here anyway." "You'll keep in touch?" "If you want me to." "I do." She smiled. "How's Max?" "Good. Asking questions I don't know how to answer, but good. You should tell him the truth when he's older, about what happened." "Maybe." "Not maybe. Definitely. He deserves to know his father fought for him." Adrian looked at her. This woman who'd saved his life twice, who'd risked everything for someone she barely knew, who was now leaving to start over somewhere new. I never asked you what you're going to do with the money, Elena said. What money? The money I assume you're going to give me for helping. The reward, compensation, whatever you want to call it. Adrian pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, handed it to her. Inside was a check for $200,000. Elena stared at it. This is too much. It's not enough. You saved my life, my son's future. There's no amount of money that covers that. I can't. Yes, you can. Take it. Start your life in Boston. Get a place that doesn't have cockroaches. Take some time off. Figure out what you want to do instead of waiting tables. She folded the check carefully, put it in her purse. Thank you. Thank you. They sat in silence for a while. Then Elena stood. I should go. Still have to pack. Adrian stood too, hugged her. She hugged him back, tight and brief, then pulled away and walked toward the door. She stopped halfway. Adrian? Yeah? Be careful. Victor's not the only dangerous person in this story. I know. I'm serious. People like him, they have friends, connections. Just watch your back. Then she was gone. Adrian drove to Sarah's house and picked up Max. His son ran out the door the moment the car pulled up, backpack bouncing. Dad, can we get pizza? Sure, buddy. And can we watch the game? Yeah, we can watch the game. Max climbed into the back seat, chattering about soccer practice and a new friend at school and something that happened at recess. Adrian listened, really listened, and felt the tightness in his chest finally start to ease. At home, they ordered pizza, watched the game. Max fell asleep on his couch during the third quarter, and Adrian carried him upstairs, tucked him in, and stood in the doorway watching him sleep. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Victor's arraignment just finished. No bail. He's being held until trial. Adrian typed back, good. Another text. It's over. You can breathe now. But Adrian wasn't sure it was over. Victor's words kept echoing in his head. Some of them don't care if I'm in prison or not. Thursday morning, Adrian returned to the office for the first time in a week. The building felt different. People stared as he walked through the lobby, whispered behind his back, but they also nodded, said good morning. A few even clapped as he passed. Diane was waiting at his office with coffee and a stack of messages. Welcome back, she said. Good to be back. The board wants a meeting. Investors are calling. And there are about 50 journalists who want interviews. Tell the board I'll meet with them tomorrow. Tell the investors we're stable and moving forward. And tell the journalists no comment. All of them? All of them. Except Sarah Chen. If she calls, put her through. He spent the day rebuilding, called clients personally, reassured them, made promises he intended to keep. By evening, he'd salvaged 3 contracts that had been on the verge of cancellation and scheduled meetings with 2 new investors who saw opportunity in the chaos. Progress. Slow, but real. Friday afternoon, his lawyer called again. We found Reed, Jim said. Where? Mexico. Living under an assumed name in a small town on the coast. The FBI is bringing him back to testify. Will he cooperate? He doesn't have much choice. They found the evidence he mentioned, hidden in a storage unit in Jersey. Documents, recordings, everything. It's all admissible. When's the trial? 3 months? Maybe 4? Victor's lawyers are going to drag this out as long as they can. 3 months. Adrian could survive 3 months. That night, he took Max to their favorite diner, the one they hadn't been to in weeks. Max ordered pancakes for dinner, and Adrian didn't stop him. They sat in the booth by the window, the same booth they always sat in, and for the first time in a long time, things felt almost normal. Dad? Max said through a mouthful of pancakes. Yeah? Are things going to be okay now? Adrian looked at his son, 6 years old, too young to understand betrayal and murder and corporate conspiracy, but old enough to know when his father was scared. Yeah, buddy, Adrian said. Things are going to be okay. And for the first time, he almost believed it. The calm lasted exactly 11 days. Adrian had started to believe in normal again. Mornings with Max, afternoons at the office rebuilding client relationships, evenings without checking the locks 3 times or looking over his shoulder in parking garages. He'd even managed a full night's sleep without waking up at 3 a.m. convinced someone was breaking in. Then Marcus showed up at his house on a Saturday morning with the expression Adrian had learned meant trouble. We have a situation, Marcus said. Max was upstairs playing video games. Adrian led Marcus to the kitchen and closed the door. What kind of situation? Thomas Reed's dead. The words landed like a punch. Adrian grabbed the counter to steady himself. How? Car accident. Wednesday night in Tijuana. Drove off a cliff on a coastal highway. Mexican police ruled it an accident, said he was drunk, lost control. You believe that? No, neither does the FBI. They were supposed to pick him up Thursday morning, bring him back for a deposition. Instead, they found his car at the bottom of a ravine. Adrian's mind raced. Reed had been the linchpin. His testimony would have connected every piece of Victor's plan, filled in gaps the recordings couldn't cover. Without him, we still have the evidence he left, Adrian said. The storage unit, the documents. Yeah, but documents don't testify. Documents don't tell a jury about conversations they witnessed. Victor's lawyers are going to tear those documents apart, claim they're fabricated, claim Reed could have made them up for any number of reasons. What about Ortiz? He's cooperating. Ortiz is cooperating to save his own skin. His credibility's shot. Good lawyer puts him on the stand, jury's going to see a career criminal trying to cut a deal. Reed was different. Reed was a civilian who got in over his head and wanted to make it right. Adrian sat down, felt that familiar tightness returning to his chest. Victor did this. Probably, but proving it's going to be impossible. He's been locked up for 2 weeks. No visitors except his lawyers, no phone calls except to his legal team, no way to order a hit from inside. His lawyers, then. Or someone he set up before he was arrested. A contingency plan. Maybe, but again, proving it, I know. Impossible. Adrian ran his hands through his hair. What does the DA say? They're still moving forward with the trial. They think they have enough without Reed. The recordings, the financial documents, Elena's testimony, the wire recording from the bar. It's not as strong as it was, but it's still solid. But not guaranteed. Nothing's ever guaranteed. After Marcus left, Adrian sat in the kitchen for a long time. Stared at the coffee he'd poured but couldn't drink. Thought about Reed. A man who'd made terrible choices, tried to make them right, and died for it. Thought about Elena, safe in Boston, starting over. Thought about Victor, sitting in a cell somewhere, probably smiling because his insurance policy had just paid out. His phone rang. Sarah Chen. You heard about Reed, she said. Yeah. I'm working on a follow-up story, trying to prove it wasn't an accident. You have anything I can use? Like what? Anything that suggests Victor had help on the outside. Phone records, visitor logs, evidence of a prearranged plan. If I had that, I'd give it to the FBI. Sometimes journalists can go places the FBI can't, and sometimes journalists end up dead in Mexico. Silence on the line. Then, is that what you think happened? Someone killed Reed to shut him up? I think Reed knew too much, and I think Victor's very good at making problems disappear. On the record or off? Off. Everything's off. I'm done talking to reporters. Fair enough, but if you change your mind, I won't. He hung up. Immediately regretted it. Sarah had helped him. She'd published the story that turned public opinion, that gave the DA ammunition to pile on charges. But Adrian was tired. Tired of looking over his shoulder. Tired of wondering who he could trust. The next 3 months crawled by. The trial date was set, postponed, set again. Victor's lawyers filed motion after motion, challenged evidence, demanded change of venue, argued jury bias. Every week brought a new delay, a new complication. Adrian kept the company running. Barely. 2 major clients pulled their contracts despite his reassurances. 3 investors backed out of the Singapore expansion. The board held a vote of no confidence that Adrian survived by exactly 2 votes. His reputation was intact enough to keep him in charge, but damaged enough that every decision was questioned. Max started having nightmares. Waking up at 2 a.m. convinced someone was in the house. Adrian would sit with him until he fell back asleep, then lie awake himself, listening to every creak and settling sound, hand on his phone, ready to call Marcus. Elena texted once a month. Brief updates. The job in Boston was good. She'd found an apartment, made friends, started taking night classes. She never asked about the trial, and Adrian never volunteered information. They both understood that part of her life was over. Then, In late June, jury selection began. Adrian sat in the courtroom every day, watched 12 people get chosen to decide whether Victor Hale would spend the rest of his life in prison. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from 24 to 68. A teacher, 2 retirees, a software engineer, a nurse, a bartender, a graduate student, and 5 others whose professions Adrian immediately forgot. They looked normal, tired, bored, like people pulled away from their lives to judge someone else's. Victor sat at the defense table looking thinner than Adrian remembered. Prison food, probably. Or stress. His expensive suits didn't fit quite right anymore. But his eyes were the same, sharp, calculating. He caught Adrian's gaze once across the courtroom and smiled. The trial started on a Monday. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. The poisoning attempt, the financial fraud, the conspiracy to commit murder. They called witnesses, showed recordings, presented documents. Elena testified on day 3. She looked terrified walking to the stand, but her voice stayed steady as she recounted seeing Reed drop something into Adrian's wine glass, making the decision to switch the glasses, warning Adrian the next day. Victor's lawyer cross-examined her for 2 hours, suggested she'd imagined it, suggested she'd switched the glasses for some other reason, suggested she'd fabricated the entire story for attention or money. Isn't it true, Ms. Brooks, that Mr. Vale paid you $200,000 after the arrest? Yes. $200,000 is a lot of money for a waitress, isn't it? It wasn't payment for testimony. It was, just answer the question, is $200,000 a lot of money? Yes. And wouldn't you say almost anything to protect that payment, to make sure Mr. Vale's version of events held up? Elena looked at the lawyer, then at the jury. I switched those glasses because I saw someone put something in a drink. I didn't know who Adrian Vale was, didn't know what it would turn into. I just knew that if I did nothing, someone might die. That's it. That's the whole story. The lawyer asked more questions, but Elena didn't waver. When she stepped down, Adrian caught her eye. She nodded once, then left the courtroom and didn't come back. Marcus testified on day 5, walked the jury through the investigation, the surveillance, the discovery of Victor's financial crimes. He was professional, thorough, unshakable. David Ortiz testified on day 7. He looked smaller than Adrian remembered. Prison orange didn't suit him. He confirmed everything the prosecution claimed: the meetings with Victor, the plans to poison Adrian, the backup plan to frame him for fraud, the attempts to silence Reed. Victor's lawyer tore into him. You're testifying in exchange for a reduced sentence, correct? Yes. So you have every incentive to lie, to tell the prosecution what they want to hear. I'm telling the truth. Are you? Or are you telling a story that keeps you out of prison for the next 20 years? I'm telling what happened. What you claim happened. It went like that for hours. By the time Ortiz stepped down, Adrian couldn't tell whether the jury believed him or not. Their faces gave nothing away. The prosecution rested on day 9. Victor's defense began immediately. His lawyers painted a different picture. Victor as the victim of a vindictive partner. Adrian as a paranoid executive who'd fabricated evidence to destroy a rival. They presented their own witnesses, former employees who said Adrian was difficult to work with, a psychiatrist who testified about stress-induced delusions, a financial expert who claimed the offshore accounts were legitimate business expenses. They couldn't explain the poisoning, couldn't explain the recordings, but they didn't have to explain everything, just create reasonable doubt. Victor took the stand on day 13. He looked confident, composed, like a man telling the truth to people who'd understand. He denied everything, said he'd never tried to hurt Adrian, never hired Reed, never conspired with Ortiz. The financial irregularities were accounting errors. The recordings were taken out of context.
Did you ever discuss killing Adrian Vale, Srasasi? The prosecutor asked during cross-examination. Never. Did you hire Thomas Reed to poison him? No. Did you orchestrate a plan to frame him for fraud? Absolutely not. Then how do you explain the recording from the bar? Your own voice discussing exactly that? I was drunk, talking hypothetically. Ortiz kept pushing me to discuss worst-case scenarios, and I engaged. It was stupid, but it wasn't real. Hypothetically discussing murdering your business partner? I never said murder. I said the business would be mine if something happened to him. That's not the same thing. And the poisoning? I don't know anything about that. Maybe Reed acted alone. Maybe he misunderstood something I said. Or maybe it never happened, and this whole thing is a misunderstanding. The prosecutor pushed harder, but Victor held his ground. He'd prepared for this, had answers for everything. By the time he stepped down, Adrian's confidence had taken a hit. Closing arguments came on day 15. The prosecution went first, walking the jury through the evidence one final time. They emphasized the recordings, the testimony, the pattern of behavior. They asked the jury to use common sense, to see the conspiracy for what it was. The defense countered, argued the prosecution's case was circumstantial, built on the word of criminals and people with financial incentives to lie. They asked the jury to consider reasonable doubt, to remember that in America, you're innocent until proven guilty beyond any shadow of uncertainty. The jury deliberated for 4 days. 4 days of Adrian sitting in his office staring at his phone. 4 days of Max asking why Dad seemed distracted. 4 days of Marcus texting updates that said nothing had changed. On the afternoon of the 4th day, the call came. Verdict. Adrian was back in the courtroom within an hour. The gallery was packed. Journalists, spectators, people who'd followed the trial like it was entertainment. Victor sat at the defense table looking calm. Too calm. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Victor. Adrian had read somewhere that was a good sign, but he didn't trust signs anymore. The judge asked if they'd reached a verdict. "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find?" "We find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Adrian couldn't breathe. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of fraud, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of embezzlement, how do you find?" "Guilty." It went on. 14 charges, 14 guilty verdicts. By the time the foreman finished reading, Victor's calm had cracked. He sat frozen, staring at the table, while his lawyers whispered frantically beside him. The judge set sentencing for 6 weeks out, thanked the jury, adjourned. Adrian walked out of the courthouse into camera flashes and shouted questions. He ignored them all, got in his car, and drove home. Sat in the driveway for 10 minutes before he could make himself go inside. Max was waiting in the living room. "Did you win?" Max asked. "Yeah, buddy, we won." "Does that mean the bad man goes to jail?" "Yeah? Forever?" "For a very long time." Max hugged him. Adrian held his son and let himself feel relief for the first time in months. It wasn't over yet. Sentencing still loomed. Appeals would follow, but the worst had passed. That night, after Max went to bed, Adrian sat on his back porch with a beer and called Elena. "I heard," she said. "It's all over the news. Guilty on all counts. How do you feel?" "Tired." "Yeah, I bet." They talked for a while. Small things, her classes, his company, the weather in Boston versus the weather here. Normal conversation between two people who'd survived something abnormal together. "I'm glad it's over," Elena said eventually. "Me too." "Are you going to be okay? Really okay?" "I think so. Ask me again in a year." "I will." After they hung up, Adrian sat in the dark listening to crickets and distant traffic. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Chen. "Congratulations. Interview offer still stands if you change your mind." He deleted it. Another text. "Marcus. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate?" Adrian typed back, "Yeah, sounds good." Sentencing day arrived 6 weeks later. August. Hot and humid. The kind of weather that made you question why anyone lived on the East Coast. Adrian wore a suit despite the heat, sat in the same seat he'd occupied throughout the trial. Victor was brought in wearing prison clothes. He'd aged noticeably. Gray at his temples, lines around his eyes. Prison did that to people. The judge read through the charges again. Asked if Victor had anything to say before sentencing. Victor stood. "Your Honor, I maintain my innocence. I never tried to hurt Adrian Vale, never conspired to commit murder. The jury got it wrong, and I'll be appealing this verdict. That's all I have to say." He sat back down. The judge looked unimpressed. She'd presided over the entire trial, heard every piece of evidence. She wasn't buying Victor's innocence.
Mr. Hale, she said, you were found guilty of attempting to murder your business partner, of conspiring to steal his company, of committing fraud on a massive scale. These crimes were premeditated, calculated, and showed a complete disregard for human life. You betrayed someone who trusted you. You endangered a child. You corrupted others into doing your bidding. The court sees no reason for leniency. She sentenced him to 45 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for 25 years. Victor would be 71 before he'd even be eligible for early release. His lawyers immediately filed notice of appeal. Victor was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. He didn't look at Adrian, didn't look at anyone, just walked out like a man who'd already left this world behind. Adrian stayed until the courtroom emptied. Then he walked out into sunshine that felt brighter than it had in months. Marcus was waiting by his car. 45 years, Marcus said. Yeah. That's effectively life. Yeah. How do you feel? Adrian thought about it. Like I can finally breathe. They got drinks that night. Not at Luminaire. Adrian would never set foot in that restaurant again. But at a dive bar, Marcus knew where nobody recognized them and the beer was cheap. They didn't talk about the trial, didn't talk about Victor, just talked about normal things, sports, Max's upcoming birthday, Marcus's daughter starting college. Normal felt good. The company recovered slowly. Clients came back. New investors emerged. The board stopped questioning every decision. By October, Adrian had hired a new COO to handle day-to-day operations so he could spend more time with Max. Someone he'd vetted thoroughly, someone with no connection to Victor or his network. Life started resembling something manageable. Max's nightmares stopped. He went back to being a regular 7-year-old who cared more about soccer and video games than corporate conspiracies and murder trials. Adrian attended every game, every parent-teacher conference, every school event. Made good on the promises he'd made during those dark weeks when he wasn't sure he'd survive to keep them. Elena visited once, December. She was in town for the holidays and texted asking if they could meet for coffee. They went to the same shop where they'd said goodbye months earlier. She looked different, happier. Her hair was different. New clothes. The kind of confidence that came from building something for yourself. You look good, Adrian said. You too. Less like someone trying to survive each day. I feel less like that. How's Max? Good. Great, actually. He made the travel soccer team. Won't stop talking about it. That's good. Kids should get to just be kids. They talked for an hour. She told him about finishing her degree, about a job offer from a tech company in Cambridge, about a guy she'd started seeing who worked in her building and didn't know anything about poisoned wine or billionaires or trials. I'm happy for you, Adrian said. I'm happy for me, too. She smiled. You ever think about that night at the restaurant? Sometimes. You ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't switched the glasses? Yeah, but then I stopped wondering because it doesn't matter. You did switch them. Everything that came after happened because you made that choice. Would you do it again, the whole thing, if you could go back? Adrian considered. I don't know, probably not, but I can't go back, so it doesn't matter. No, I guess it doesn't. When they parted ways this time, it felt more final, like they were both closing a chapter. Elena was moving forward with her life. Adrian was rebuilding his. Their paths had intersected for a brief, intense moment, and now they were diverging again. That was okay. The new year came. Adrian took Max skiing in Vermont. They stayed in a cabin with no cell service and spent a week just being together. Max learned to snowboard. Adrian remembered how to relax. They built snowmen and drank hot chocolate and talked about nothing important. On the last night, sitting by the fireplace while Max slept upstairs, Adrian thought about the past year, about how close he'd come to losing everything, about the people who'd saved him, Elena, Marcus, Sarah, even Reed in his own complicated way. He thought about Victor, sitting in a cell somewhere, probably still convinced he'd done nothing wrong. He thought about Max sleeping peacefully upstairs, safe because his father had fought for him. And he thought about the future, about rebuilding the company into something better, about being present for his son, about learning to trust again, carefully, slowly, but learning nonetheless. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Appeal denied. It's officially over. Adrian stared at the message. Victor's lawyers had been fighting the conviction for 6 months, filing briefs, arguing technicalities, looking for any angle, and now it was done. The conviction stood. 45 years confirmed. He typed back, "Good." Then he put his phone away and went upstairs to check on Max. His son was sprawled across the bed, covers kicked off, still wearing one sock. Adrian pulled the blanket back over him and stood there watching him sleep. This was what mattered, not the company, not the money, not revenge or justice or any of the things he'd been fighting for, just this kid, this small person who trusted him completely and deserved a father who could be present, who could be safe, who could be there. Adrian had almost lost that, had come within one switched wine glass of Max growing up without him, but he hadn't lost it, and now he had a second chance to get it right. 3 years later, on a Thursday evening in early spring, Adrian sat in the stands at Max's soccer game watching his 10-year-old son chase a ball across a muddy field. Max had gotten taller, faster, better. He scored 2 goals and spent the rest of the game grinning like he'd won the World Cup. After the game, they went to the diner, the same one they'd always gone to, same booth. Max ordered pancakes for dinner again, and Adrian let him. "Dad?" Max said. "Yeah? I heard some kids at school talking about that thing that happened, with your old partner, the one who tried to hurt you." Adrian set down his coffee. "What did they say?" "Just that it was in the news, that there was a trial. They asked if it was true." "What did you tell them?" "That I didn't know, that I was too young to remember." Max looked up. "Was it true? Did someone really try to kill you?" Adrian had known this conversation would come eventually, had rehearsed different versions in his head. But now, sitting here with his son, he realized the truth was simpler than any rehearsed speech. "Yeah," Adrian said. "It was true." "Why?" "Because someone wanted something I had, and they thought the easiest way to get it was to get rid of me." "That's messed up." "Yeah, it is. But you're okay now." "I'm okay now." Max nodded, went back to his pancakes. "I'm glad you're okay." "Me too, buddy." They finished dinner, drove home. Max did homework while Adrian answered emails. Normal evening, normal life. The kind of normal Adrian had fought for and almost lost and would never take for granted again. Later that night, after Max went to bed, Adrian's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then did. "Hello? Mr. Vale? This is Christine Martinez. I'm a producer with Dateline NBC. We're doing a retrospective on the Victor Hale case. I was wondering if you'd be interested in participating." "No. We'd make it worth your time. Tell your side of the story. Show people what really happened." "People know what really happened. It was a trial, public record. But your perspective, my perspective is private, and it's staying that way." He hung up, blocked the number, went back to his email. The requests still came sometimes. Journalists, podcasters, true crime enthusiasts. Everyone wanted the story from the man who'd survived. Adrian always said no. The story belonged to him and the people who'd lived through it, not to strangers looking for entertainment. 5 years after the trial, Vale Industries had fully recovered. Adrian had taken the company in a new direction. Less aggressive growth, more sustainable practices. Better oversight. He'd learned from what happened with Victor, had built safeguards to prevent it from happening again. He'd also stepped back from day-to-day operations, promoted someone from within to CEO, someone younger, hungrier, but vetted so thoroughly that Adrian knew her entire life story. He stayed on as chairman, but spent most of his time with Max, coaching soccer, attending school plays, teaching him to drive when he turned 15, being present for the small moments that made up a life. Max asked about Victor sometimes, usually after seeing something on TV or hearing kids talk at school. Adrian answered honestly, but without unnecessary details. Yes, someone had tried to hurt him. Yes, they'd gone to prison. Yes, it had been scary. No, Max didn't need to worry about it happening again. Elena got married, sent Adrian an invitation. He couldn't make the wedding. It was in Boston. On a weekend he'd promised Max they'd go camping, but he sent a gift and a note wishing her well. She sent a thank you card with a photo. She looked radiant, happy, settled into a life that had nothing to do with poisoned wine, or corporate conspiracy. Sarah Chen won a Pulitzer for investigative journalism. Her series on corporate crime, which had started with Victor's case, had expanded into a year-long investigation that exposed corruption across multiple industries. Adrian sent her a congratulatory email. She responded with thanks and a promise to never ask for another interview. Marcus retired at 60, moved to Florida, sent photos of himself fishing. Adrian missed having him around but was happy he'd found peace. Victor remained in prison. Appeals exhausted. Sentence standing. Adrian never visited, never wrote, never gave him another thought except when Max asked questions. On the 10th anniversary of the poisoning attempt, Adrian took Max, now 16, to Luminaire. The restaurant had changed ownership twice since that night. New management, new chef. But the building was the same. They sat at a different table, different floor. But Adrian could see the corner booth where it had happened, where Elena had stood with a trembling hand and a choice that saved his life. "Why are we here?" Max asked, studying the menu. "Because 10 years ago, in this restaurant, someone did something incredibly brave, and I wanted to remember it somewhere it mattered." "The waitress who switched the glasses?" "Yeah." "You ever talk to her?" "Not in a few years. She has her own life now." "You should call her, say thanks again." "Maybe I will." They ordered dinner, ate in the kind of comfortable silence that came from knowing someone your whole life. Adrian looked at his son, nearly grown now, tall and confident and smart, and felt overwhelming gratitude. For Elena's choice, for Marcus's help, for the legal system working the way it was supposed to, for pure luck that had put the right person in the right place at the right time. Life was fragile. Adrian had learned that the hard way. You could build empires and make millions and think you were untouchable, but all it took was one person with bad intentions and access to a wine glass. What saved you wasn't money or power. It was other people. People who saw something wrong and chose to act. People who risked their own safety to protect yours. People who stood beside you when everything fell apart. After dinner, Adrian drove Max home. Helped him with calculus homework even though his own math skills were rusty. Watched him head upstairs to bed. Then Adrian went to his office, pulled up his contacts, found Elena's number, stared at it for a long moment. He typed out a message. 10 years ago today, you saved my life. I just wanted to say thank you again. Hope you're well. Adrian. He hit send before he could overthink it. 3 minutes later, his phone buzzed. I think about that night sometimes. Still can't believe I actually did it. Glad it mattered. Glad you're okay. Adrian smiled, typed back, me too. He put his phone away and sat in the quiet of his office. Outside, the city hummed with traffic and lives being lived, people working, people sleeping, people making choices that would ripple forward in ways they couldn't predict. Somewhere in that city, someone was probably plotting something terrible. Someone else was probably noticing something wrong and deciding whether to act. The world kept spinning, good and bad, in constant motion. But tonight, in this house, Adrian and Max were safe. The nightmare that had started at Luminaire had ended. Victor was in prison. The company had survived. And Max was growing into someone kind and thoughtful and brave. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.